We are in for a very fun NBA playoffs. Literally just said that to Andre, and Andre just goes, I like the first round matchups. I think we all do. We just did our Western Conference preview. It's up. It's 20 minutes of greatness. You can be cocky today. Go watch it. And if it's terrible, then come back to this one and tell me why. You have to watch both. The Eastern Conference first round playoffs preview. Boston and Chicago, which is just a historical battle, even though Boston should step on them. Washington and Atlanta, Toronto and Milwaukee, Cleveland and Indiana. We'll start at the top and work our way down the same way. I think the Bulls are still a dumpster fire. So, and I'm really bitter that, and as much as I love Dwayne Wade and I've rooted for the guy since his Marquette years, I'm bitter that the Heat didn't get this spot because I thought Spoelstra deserved it. They were 11-30. They were 11-30 and were like a quarter game away from making the playoffs. That's a remarkable turnaround. And even though you're getting beat pretty bad by the Celtics in that series regardless, it just felt right. It felt they should have been there.
Yeah, no, the Heat were they were definitely one of the top 5 teams in the East over the last half of the season, arguably top 3. I mean, like they were a strong team. So it is kind of unfortunate they didn't make it. It's really, really strange, or not strange, what's the word? Like the East playoffs are weird because you're talking about a 1-8 seed and you're like, okay, well, you know, the Celtics are the 1 seed, the Heat are the Bulls. The Bulls are the 8 seed.
Though, if you want. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That was Freudian. But I mean, you know, you expect the 1 seed to be able to stomp a mud hole in the 8th seed, but the Celtics aren't really that much better than the Bulls. You know, it's the way the East broke down. They're a number 1 seed with 53 wins. Like that doesn't really happen.
Right.
Their point differential for the season is plus 2.7. That's not a number 1 seed's differential. And I mean, the Bulls are at plus 0.4. So we're talking about 2 points a game difference, where a lot of times home court advantage is given 3 points in your SRS calculation. So a lot of these games project to be toss-ups. And that's the one in the 8th seed. So, and then you factor in injuries. I mean, the Bulls, especially there towards the end, they didn't have Wade at all for a long period.
Playoffs Wade's a different Wade.
Yeah, you know, they still have Rondo, who all of a sudden started playing well at the end, but he's Rondo and he doesn't really fit with Wade, but he's playing against the Celtics, who he can't really be happy with at this point. So I don't know. It's an interesting series. I'm picking the Celtics to win it, but just on paper, it's not the blowout it should be.
Playoffs Wade we saw last year, half of a Dwayne Wade during the regular season, and all of a sudden, they're in 7 games deep with the Raptors, I believe is who they fell to. Wizards and the Hawks. In terms of an actual battle, a Wizard would of course take down a Hawk, let's be real. We have sublime powers versus just somebody with great vision. And maybe he's pretty fast. Maybe I'm underselling the Hawk. But I think the Wizards, another team I criticized really heavily early on, I kept saying they seemingly are getting worse. They're getting worse every day. I don't know how this is happening. And then 23 games into the season, and Wizards basketball at one point was threatening for a top 3 seed, top 2 seed. They were unbeatable at home, but they couldn't win a game on the road, and then that flipped like in the last 20 games. So I have literally no idea what's going to happen. I'm taking the chalk. I'm taking the Wizards for the sole reason that they have the 4, which is a lower number than the 5. Although my recent favorite, Thabo Sefolosha, being given what he did with his money after the settlement from the NYPD, I'm buying his jersey. So I'm just excited to watch poor man's Spurs basketball, the Hawks, Budenholzer type of offense, versus John Wall and Bradley Beal. I mean, again, I'm talking too much about the backcourt. There's Kelly Oubre and Otto Porter have played phenomenally this year. So the wings and the forwards in this situation, front court for the Wizards, are also going to have a tremendous impact, maybe be the reason that they're going to succeed in the playoffs.
Yeah, so, you know, this piggybacks on what I was just talking about with the Celtics and the Bulls. Because, you know, you were saying you feel like the Bulls are a dumpster fire. That's kind of how I feel about the Hawks. Like, I feel like they're, you know, they're just wrong. Like, they're just not, I don't know. I think they might be the most surprising team that made the playoffs. Like, I would have, you know, I would actually have put the Bulls and the Heat both over the Hawks. And some of that is, you know, I was talking about point differential. That's, you know, I'm a nerd stats guy. That's supposed to be the predictor. So the Hawks had the worst differential in the playoffs. They were negative -0.9.
What's the Pacers?
The Pacers are
like,
-0.2.
I was gonna say I thought they're the only two with negative point differentials, correct?
Well, the Bucks too. The Bucks ended up -0.2.
Oh no.
But I mean, so if you look at it overall, the Celtics were 2.7 and the Bulls were 0.4. So that's your 1-8 matchup, and they had a difference of 2.3. The Hawks and the Wizards, that's the 4-5 matchup. Their difference is 2.7. So
close, man.
On paper, the Wizards are more better than the Hawks than the Celtics are better than the Bulls. You know, it just comes back to the weirdness of the East. I'm picking the Wizards. Like I said, the Hawks just don't feel right to me. The Wizards have more talent, like top to bottom. They should be better. They should beat them. If the Hawks win, then yeah, maybe it's that Spurs magic residual. I can't call it. They beat the Cavs twice inexplicably in the last week of the season when the Cavs actually needed the win. I didn't get it then. So if they win, it'll be more of that. But yeah, I'm picking the Wizards in this one.
We should just start calling the East the Game of Thrones. We have no idea what the hell's going on. Like, we don't know who's winning the throne here. We just have our best bets. Like, we have, how many dragons do the Wizards have? Do they have enough dragons to take over the East? Can they? At least the top half of it? So far, by the way, I've called Chicago. Now you've mentioned Atlanta. And now we move to Toronto as 3 dumpster fires. So Raptors fans don't like me. Even though I gave them so much love, I gave DeRozan so much objective love. This season, they still hate me. They just do. They think that I'm out to get them because all last playoffs I kept saying, man, this team lives and dies by their backcourt. If their backcourt shoots 15% combined, they're gonna get crushed. Then they win 2 games against the Cavs and I'm banging my head against the desk. I can't take it. Can't take it anymore. I'm taking the Bucks, man. I'm taking point Giannis. Chris Middleton, who we discussed earlier, way before the season started, as like the difference maker of Middleton. Then he got injured, and we were very bummed because we like Chris Middleton. And then Jabari Parker filled that role, and then he got injured, which bummed me out even more. I'm on Fear the Deer. I don't want to deal with Toronto Raptors fans. I don't think Drake's a fan anymore. We're on Milwaukee's train, which is where I believe RotoWire is located.
See, so 2 things now. I'm still stuck on your Game of Thrones reference from before. I'm trying to picture who's Cersei with like the big gulp of Merlot drinking to taking over, blowing up the church. And I'm trying to think, I feel like Russell Westbrook is the most ruthless player in the NBA. And so I'm trying to picture him as Cersei. And so my mind's gone a whole different place.
Definitely a fair,
but back to the
that's
Raptors
a good analogy. I like that.
But yeah, Raptors and Bucks. I actually really like the Raptors, and
winning
I like
over
them
the
more.
audience.
Say what?
You're gonna just win over the audience.
Oh yes, love me. But no, when I was I went to the Sloan conference in Boston this year, and one of my favorite panels, maybe my favorite panel overall, was the one that had the GMs of the Cavs, the Raptors, and the Warriors up there with and then randomly, what's my man's name? Louis Scola. It was like the 3 GMs awesome. And Louis Scola. That's
so great. No, Louis Scola seems like a cool dude.
Yeah, I feel like Louis Scola was just kind of, because he had been on other panels and you would see him walking around. I think he was just there and was like that's it, I'm getting, because he wasn't on the program.
He was just like up there. He was just the go-to, like, we have an NBA player here. You just we need you to sit up here, if you don't mind.
Exactly.
You're already
here. But
you
know, because Scola has played for the Raptors, and the Raptors GM is hilarious. I don't know if I should try to pronounce his name, but he's like a hilarious dude. And he was just up there just roasting Louis Scola the whole time. He just, like, every story ended with, yeah, and Scola, he's in the weight room. I mean, he's like 75 years old. I'm telling him, don't throw out a hip, you know what I mean? He's just like giving it to him. And that made me like personally like the Raptors. I didn't really have a tie to the Raptors outside. I love how Kyle Lowry plays, but that really, kind of put a personality to the whole team for me. So that helps me to like them more, which I need because I'm also a big Giannis fan, and I would pull for the Bucks just because I like Giannis. But I think the Raptors are the better team, especially with Lowry back. They're kind of like the Clippers of the East in that every year in the playoffs, Lowry is hurt. Just like every year in the playoffs, somebody for the Clippers is hurt, and it makes them play worse than they are. But this year, Lowry got his injury out the way, and it seems to have come back at full speed. And so if he's at his best, I think they're better than the Bucks, even though Giannis should be able to maybe sneak out a game or two just because he's absurd.
I mean, he's a White Walker. He's not from any human race. It's not fair.
There you go.
That's where he's. I mean, it's all powerful. Granted, they all have like one type of sword. That's a total BS thing about the show. Regardless, Raptors fans, just go follow Andre. You can roast me on Twitter for it. They don't.
And actually, I think you're wrong. I think the Dothraki have different kinds of swords. Their swords curve. I'm a nerd about a lot of stuff. Game of Thrones is one of them.
It's
but
coming.
Yeah, their swords should be different than everybody else's.
Look, we get the NBA playoffs, then we get the Game of Thrones. I don't know if it gets any better than that. I'm taking the Bucks out of spite. Such a mean thing to do. The Cavs and the Pacers. So the Pacers are another one of those teams, as you mentioned, with the negative point differential, and that's never a good sign for any team that's in the playoffs, because more than half the teams in the league make the playoffs, which could be a problem in its own right. I just find it impossible to accept at all that, yes, the Cavs have defensive worries, but LeBron James is the best player on the planet. Somebody put it great on Twitter the other day. They said if you like flipped over the 2012 Pacers and shook them up and then kind of threw them out on the court, that's what you got. Like, everyone's kind of like, everyone's at a different weird stage. Lance is back, and I love that he's back, by the way. I think it's the greatest thing. I think Lance Stephenson's hilarious. So that's the storyline I'm paying attention to here. I don't know if Paul George likes being in Indiana, because sometimes he says he does, and other times he's dabbing up LeBron in the first place. I can't see this not like Cavs in 5 at the absolute worst.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. You know, I love Paul George LeBron matchup. You know, George is one of the, I always say he was kind of the original Greek freak. He's just not from Greece, but just physically, like he's got the ability to make LeBron work, and I like that. And he doesn't back down from LeBron. I like that too. And I like Lance Stephenson. He never should have left the Pacers, and both of their lives were more miserable until they reunited. He's going to do something and try to blow in LeBron's ear again, or just something, just because he's Lance Stephenson, and that's what he should. It should make the series more interesting.
I agree.
The Cavs are the problem, because everything in me says that the Cavs are the defending NBA champs, should have easily been the best team in the East, and they've been on cruise control. Until I see differently in the playoffs, I think I'm going to continue to believe that. But their last 2-3 weeks of the season were so absurdly bad. Like I can't. My basketball sense can't make sense of it. It's kind of like in 2011 with the Heat, when LeBron, it was their first year together, but he just started not playing like LeBron. I mean, it was just, you couldn't explain it. It was just like, okay, the Mavs won and go Dirk, but LeBron stopped playing for 2 weeks. And I can't explain it. He didn't do that in the season. He was actually playing well. The team just stopped winning for some reason. I don't get it. I'm going to go ahead and pick them in 5, because I'm going to believe that they're going to come back to what they should be. If the imposters we've seen the last few weeks continue to show up in Cavs uniforms, then I guess I'll just have to reevaluate my basketball talent.
I think there's an insane bet, but the $20 on the Pacers to win the series, it's a bad bet. It's probably the best return. It's probably the most likely. It's gonna be weird. I'm excited though. Tomorrow, Sunday, we'll be live tweeting. Obviously, I'm not doing anything this weekend besides watching playoff basketball. What else would I be doing? Comment below. Make sure to follow Andre.
You're a lucky man. You're still single.
That's exactly true.
This is Easter weekend. I have a family. I am going to be struggling to watch the games.
I'll send you a update you via text if I must.
I appreciate it.
5,000 messages. Follow Andre on Twitter. I'm sure he'll be weighing in at some point. Of course, have a great weekend. Obviously, we're going to do one more clip that we're going to be saving for later. But as for the sign off on this clip, it would be rude if I didn't say happy holidays and have a good weekend.